Our own Nigerian professor of literature, Neil Oshundere, was not in any way incorrect when he posited that poetry is the eloquence of the gong, the lyric of the marketplace, and finally, man meaning to man. All right, that was his very sublime and subtle, if you ask me, very simple definition of poetry. You're welcome to today's edition of Literature for West Africa on Ismus TV. My name is MC Liki Liki, also known as Okafor Ogochukwu Amos. This program is brought to you by Ismus Enterprises in conjunction with Imo State Government and Bell International School plus Doris High School, all in Owerri, Nigeria. Okay, today we are going to be considering a poem, not a non-African poet. And the title of the poem we're considering today, we are going to be interrogating and analyzing is She Works in Beauty by Lord Byron. Very interesting, somewhat controversial, but I know definitely you must like this one. All right, but before I proceed, please remember to, if we're adding any value to you at all, so click on the subscription button on this channel, and as well make it a point of duty to get some copies of my book. They're all on Amazon Kindle. The novels I've written and all the books. You have Toanopat, Spyro Strewn, Arise from the Rubble, Naira and Koban, other poems. Okay, that's quite some books I've written there. So let's proceed with today's episode of Literature for West Africa. She Works in Beauty. All right, let me take the lines of the poem before I give my explanation. She works in beauty like the night of cloudless times and starry skies, and all that is best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus, mellowed to that tender light which heaven to God the day denies. Alright, so let's take the last stanza. And on that cheek and over the brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win the things that glow, but tell of days in goodness spent. A mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. All right. For us to properly understand this poem, it's important that we note that the poet being talked about today is a poet that practiced during a period of English literature known as the Romantic period. Of course, you know what that means. Romantic period, love in the air, right? That's the predominant or the overarching predilection of writers of that period, right? Okay, so but the poet we are considering today had a very unique history, all right? If you have read his biography, you would understand that he enjoyed usuriousness and spree to a very scandalous extent. Yes, he was even said to have dated his own sister. Can you imagine having a love affair with his biological sister? Can you imagine? Though that has not been proven, but that's part of what we have gathered about this particular poet. So that's to show you how much he prioritizes love. Okay, all right. So she works in beauty. The first thing to note is this poem, cuts across different periods in English literature. All right. Somewhat you will say categorically it is a romantic poem, but also there's a philosophy in literature known as arts for art's sake. Literature, and most particularly poetry, was meant for the appreciation of beauty. In Africa, literature is utilitarian, used to teach moral lessons, but overseas or in Western clime, poetry is used to appreciate the aesthetic beauty, the physical qualities of someone or a place, or a T. Have you seen it? So that's the difference. So this poet has taken time to appreciate on one level the beauty of a woman, and on another level the beauty that our world should, exude. You know, the sereneness, the tranquility and equipoise that our society ought to radiate. That's on another level. So let's take the first level, right? The appreciation of beauty. Of course, if you look at the lines of that poetry, you'll find out that the themes derivable is the fact that that's persona of a poet, is beholden in his mind. This is a recollection, all right? In his mind, of an affair he had with someone, all right? A love experience that he categorizes to be very therapeutic, all right? That, you know, when you have had experience that if you remember it, it imbues happiness, on you. So you find out that that is in you, rather. You find out that that is something that you would relive over and over and over and over again. So have you seen it? So let's quickly look at, the themes derivable from that the poem that we are considering today. Remember that this is still It's Much TV. I am still your host, MC Liki Gochikoka for Amers. This was brought to you, or is being brought to you by Imo State Government in conjunction with Itmus Enterprises, Eastern International School, and Doris High School. So, the themes derivable from the poem are: first, that beauty responds, to genuine admiration. If you watch the lines of the poem, you find out that what the poet is doing is a form of dialogue where he is speaking for himself, the first person rather is speaking for himself and also for the lady she admires. Have you seen it? She speaks for himself and then responds. Have you seen it? So when you see someone that you genuinely love, or you behold a spectacle that you genuinely appreciate, not in Africa where we are disturbed by the chaos that's in our society. Over in the developed climes where you have civilization and industrialization, and where the environment is beautiful, you see people speaking with animals, talking to birds and listening to what the birds are saying. I think that's how life is over there. So you see, so this poem, it's a very, interesting one. That beauty could make you, interact with, there's this what we call the telekinetic effect, Beauty can make you interact with the spirit of someone that is not, physically talking with you, but you could imagine the responses, you will get from that person or elicit from that person when you speak with that person. So that's how powerful this poem is. That's the first thing, right? And then the second one is that beauty, promotes longevity, it's therapeutic. It promotes good health and in turn long life. Have you seen it? When you see someone that makes you happy, you can imagine even what happened in the Bible. David was said he had no heat until a damsel was brought to David. Have you seen it? So that's the kind of thing that is being explored in this poem. All right. This is for students. I hope they won't misconstrue the moral lesson that the explanation that I'm giving. Okay, yes, I've not asked you to in any way get distracted and begin to look for love. No, it's not for you. All right, okay. So, and finally, lastly, that when you behold a beautiful spectacle, of course, it has a way of making a very lasting impression on you. You find that you want to go back to that place and have that experience over and over again. All right. Okay, so let's quickly look at a few literary devices or figurative expressions that were used in this poem today. Of course, they include simile. The first line is a run-on line. The structure of the poem, it has stanzas, but okay. It has a definite alternate rhyme scheme. So have you seen it? Very interesting, carefully written rather. And then you have paradox in that first stanza, and you have allusion where he says, meet her in her aspect and in her eyes. Of course, you know what? This is an indirect one. That's how I describe it, an indirect allusion, referring to, what is written in the Bible, eyes being the light of the body. If your eyes is single, of course, your whole body will be full of light. Have you seen it? So that um, spectacle you behold, that is very, very striking, illumines your entire being because of the experience, the uniqueness of that experience. Have you seen it? So that's it. What you behold with your eye affects your whole being. Wonderful. Isn't that wonderful? Of course, in the last line of that stanza, you have personification. All right. And then in the second stanza, you have antithesis. All right. The first line of the second stanza. One shade the more, one read the less. Have you seen it? There's a conflict, between your mind. There's this battle over good and evil in the heart of every man. Have you seen it? This has some link to amorous appetite. Amorous appetite. That's the way I explain it. All right, and finally, it's important for us to also note that this was brought to you by Isumu State Enterprises in conjunction with the Imo State Government, Eastwood International School, and Emders High School. My name is Ugochukwu Okafor Amos Kiliki. Remember to get the copies of the book I recommended written by me. You are helping the ministry, and click the subscription button if we have added any value to you. Until I come your way next week, my name is MC Kiliki saying bye for now.